We're going to be talking to Connector Geek about his DesignSpark journey today. You may know Connector Geek as he's a regular contributor to DesignSpark. This includes his content as a freelance content creator and also associated supplier activities where he writes and expresses opinions on the technologies on behalf of suppliers and the industry at large. Hi, Dave. Welcome to DesignSpark.
Hey Greg, it's funny to be this side of the camera rather than the other. But hey, how you doing?
Yeah, we're okay. So most people know you as Connector Geek, but as Connector Geek, you're also, an avid user of DesignSpark. You've been with us for a long time. Do you just want to tell us a little bit about your kind of journey with DesignSpark?
Sure, I come from the connector industry, hence the name. So I've been knocking around the connector industry for 30 something years. I've been a DesignSpark member since it started, which I think is back in 2010. So that makes it 13 years. So I joined back then.
So that's quite a long time, and in that time, I guess you've seen DesignSpark through its various guises into what we are today. So if we would say, as well as being a contributor and an active tools user, what is it about our software and tools that you're actually using? What's the right kind of fit for you?
Well, I consider myself very much a mechanical type of person. In fact, I have a dreadful confession. Bear in mind, I work in the electronics industry. I know very little about the electronics themselves. To me, connectors are in large part mechanical devices, and I'm certainly a mechanical kind of guy. I joined DesignSpark back when it first started, and at the time, I think it was very much an electronics focused community. There was lots of talk about the printed circuit board tool, DesignSpark PCB, that came out at that time. So there were an awful lot of people talking about PCB design, an awful lot of people talking about development kits. And this wasn't really my kind of world. Bear in mind, I'm from that mechanical, from that connector background. But I enjoyed the community. It was an active community. There were lots of people asking lots of interesting questions. And I loved being part of that. Part of the offering back then was that there wasn't a 3D tool. There wasn't actually any kind of mechanical tool. But DesignSpark had launched 3D models, and 3D models are critical for mechanical design for people like me in that connectors world.
Yeah.
And so I enjoyed the fact that there were 3D models of a lot of the connectors that I was interested in that I could download. At the time, I have been a CAD user for a long time, mainly 2D CAD, so two-dimensional drawings. I've been using them for nearly 30 years. My tool of choice is TurboCAD, which isn't particularly sophisticated compared to some of the tools that are available, but it's what I became used to. I went and worked for another company, and we were designing back shells and accessories for connectors that used a different 2D tool. I can't even remember the name of it. I didn't like it much. And even back then, we were starting to think about the idea of getting into 3D design, and it scared me because at the time it was very much a labor-intensive process. This parametric-led design that I think we've talked about on DesignSpark in the past. You had to be deep into the detail of designing it, so I just kind of shied away from it. Then DesignSpark came along, and there were 3D models available, so I didn't have to design the connectors in 3D. Other people had done that for me. I could download them.
Yeah.
There was a 3D tool. There was a free tool called Google SketchUp, which I think is still available. I think it's designed originally for architectural designs. And in terms of it being a free 3D tool, it was a way that I could start getting into that 3D world. But I found it a bit clunky. I didn't find it particularly user-friendly. So certainly for a long time, my involvement with DesignSpark was being a member of the community, talking about connectors and using the 3D tools. And then, of course, DesignSpark Mechanical came along. And all of a sudden, there was this tool that was far more capable. It's a direct modeling tool. So if anybody doesn't know what that means, basically you're using a digital lump of clay on the screen that you can form and mold as if you were using a solid lump of clay in your hands. It meant that design process was so much quicker, certainly compared to things like Google SketchUp. I found DesignSpark Mechanical so much more friendly, so much more usable, and I could import all those 3D models from DesignSpark. And so that's kind of where I got to in terms of the tool use. A lot of what I've been doing has been DesignSpark Mechanical over the years.
Yeah. So you mentioned, obviously, DesignSpark was launched 2010. You've been a member since 2010. But when we launched Mechanical in 2013, so, that's more or less 10 years that you've been using the design tools themselves as well and getting to grips with DesignSpark Mechanical. Now, just on the kind of the tools, the software, and all the kind of activity you can do on DesignSpark, we listened a lot to our audience for additional needs that they may need within their tools, their software, things that would actually help them get the job done, but also improve kind of the process for their design. And now we have free tiers. So we have three kind of subscription plans. We have Explorer, which is free, and we have Creator and Engineer, which are additional functionality for paid for accessory, if you like, to the base functionality within our tools. Now, those three payment plans, the subscription plans, which one of those are you using currently?
I'm currently using Creator, so that's the middle tier. For quite some time, I was happy with Explorer, which is the free tool. It let me do what I wanted to in DesignSpark Mechanical from a relatively simple mechanical point of view. But in terms of some of the stuff that I'm working on at the moment, the extra features that Creator allows in DesignSpark Mechanical meant that was the right model for me. I didn't need to go to the full-blown engineer. I mentioned before, I'm not an electronics designer, and so I can understand why it's so powerful for those guys. But even when it comes down to it, the Creator model's £10 a month. That's perfect for me. Even if I needed to go to the engineer level, which I at the moment don't need, but it's £15 a month. It's not a lot of money for the kind of functionality that you get and the multiple different tools that you get for a very modest subscription. But from my point of view, Creator does everything I need it to do. It gives me those features in DesignSpark Mechanical that I need, and lets me play around with the other tools to the extent that I need them.
Right. Okay. So in terms of the creator level for Mechanical, are there any standouts within the feature set that you use regularly, or the more common ones, and the reason why you upgraded to Creator?
There were two or three things that I needed straight off the bat. One was the fact that there are detailing options in the Creator version that aren't available in the free Explorer version. The ability to make my drawings look that much more professional using standard notation. And in terms of presenting that to clients, in terms of presenting that to partners and collaborators, I found that a very powerful thing to be able to make it look like a professional model, a professional drawing. I like the 3D mirror tool, the ability to do extra things with actually what I'm working on. And that was a key part of what I wanted to do. The ability to create a 3D model from a scan is pretty powerful. So you can scan using a mesh scan using STL. And the Creator version of the tool will let you take that mesh model and create a solid 3D DesignSpark Mechanical model, and actually becomes an integral part of any other design. That was pretty powerful for me.
Yeah.
And then the other thing about Creator, which isn't necessarily a tool or a feature within DesignSpark Mechanical, but I can pause my membership if I need to. And I'm not always working on these mechanical models as much as that, it's fun, and if I could make a living doing nothing but that would be great. But other projects come up, other tasks come along, I can actually pause my membership for a month if I don't think I'm going to be able to use it, or I'm not going to have the time over it a month or two. I can pause my membership and then come back to it when the next project comes along that lets me do that. So there were a whole bunch of things within DesignSpark Mechanical that meant that the Creator was definitely worth that small investment a month to give me that functionality.
Right. So earlier you were talking about 3D modeling, etc. So obviously the ability to create a 3D solid model from a 3D scan, but also with Creator you've got the ability to import and export file formats. Do you find that useful? And which file formats are you using?
Yeah, when I first got involved in 3D modeling, the main formats, the IGES model and the STEP model, let's call them neutral. They're not industry standard. There isn't really such a thing as an industry standard 3D model format. Certainly not that I'm aware of, but certainly in terms of, should we say, those more neutral formats, IGES and STEP are kind of the two on the list, and then DXFs and some of the 2D formats. And certainly when it came to downloading 3D models before things like DesignSpark Mechanical came along, you were only really able to download Step and IGES because they were the two that everybody used. So while they're not necessarily as useful now, because DesignSpark Mechanical lets you download these 3D models in I don't know what, 60 formats. I can't remember how many formats it is. I don't need 59 of them, but you can download them for all sorts of different 3D model tools, SolidWorks, TopSolid, TurboCAD, all these different tools. But there's still a need for Step and IGES because it means that you can communicate with somebody, even if they've got a different 3D modeling tool to the one that you've got. It becomes that neutral format that allows you to share your ideas with other people.
Yeah, interesting that you were talking, sharing ideas. So I guess in your world where you're designing on the mechanical level, you will have some interaction with those on the electronics level. So have you actually ever used the PCB tool itself?
I have, as I said, I'm not an electronics guy, so the mechanical side of thing has always been my side of the project, as it were. But I have used DesignSpark PCB, not least because it's got features like the ability to export a 3D model, and it's a representative 3D model, but a 3D model of the design that you're working on. So a printed circuit board you always think of as a two-dimensional layout.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time you've put your components on the board, it's a 3D shape. And when you're designing things like enclosures and where connectors are going to go on this shape, the 3D representation is actually kind of important. So I've always played a little bit with PCB because you've got that ability to export the model, build it into an enclosure. I then insert connectors maybe where they're going to go. It might be that we have to change the connector, so we have to go back into PCB to change the layout on the board a little bit for the footprint of the new
Yeah.
connector that's. But I've got to say, my exposure to PCB in the past has always been very limited, not least because it scares me because I'm not an electronics guy. But I have played with it a little bit. On the other hand, that collaboration, that working as part of a team with other people who do know PCB and know it inside out and can do amazing things with PCB, the link between the two tools and the two worlds has made life very much easier for me to be part of that collaborative approach.
Right. That's really interesting to hear that kind of collaborative approach. And I mean, with that as well, I don't know if you've had time. Have you looked at the new design tool that we have? It's called DesignSpark Circuit Simulator.
I have, and this might be the thing that then brings me more into that electronics world, because I studied electronics at high school. I've forgotten almost everything that I've learned. In the recent years, I have, should we say, I've become aware of my lack of expertise in the electronics world. So I've done things like take online courses, the edX online courses where you can go on and effectively study modules of a university course online. So I've done a little bit of that to try and bring myself up to speed with that electronics design process. But even then, an online tool, it's pretty much theory. It's all theory. And until you've actually put stuff together and actually designed a circuit and made it, I don't feel like I'm learning a lot. What the circuit simulator is going to let me do is take that step, and basically I can create an electrical circuit in its virtual form and test some of those things and actually try and make them work. I can try version after version by changing components, by changing the routing of my circuit until I know that it's going to work. It's great for me because it means I can do it in the privacy of my own office so that I'm not embarrassing myself with my electronics friends. It means that I can keep trying things until I know they work. It means I don't have to muck around with breadboards or looping wires on my desk or getting out a soldering iron, with where my skills are also quite lacking. I'm a bit rusty with the soldering iron. The ability for DesignSpark Circuit Simulator to let me learn these things, I think is gonna let me be part of that electronics conversation that in the past I've not been able to play with. And that's just me. That's just me as an electronics novice using this tool to learn and to grow and to try new things. For professional engineers, again, I can imagine it's hugely powerful. They can take sophisticated circuit ideas and get them into a virtual tool try them out before they've ever actually had to buy a single component. So the usefulness for a professional must be huge, even compared to my novice approach and what it's going to let me do.
Yeah. That's interesting to hear. Obviously, yeah, Circuit Simulator is all about, aiming at the electronics engineer for circuit design, circuit test and verification, prototyping without the need for actual product in front of you. So, and you can test and retest your circuit until you actually get the outcome that you require. But it's really interesting to hear you say that from your perspective as being somebody who's you call yourself an office in the electronics area, that you're actually using simulator to learn from. So yeah, that's quite an interesting take that you have on that design tool. Just before we finish, I'm just wondering, you've been with DesignSpark, probably one of the oldest members of DesignSpark, not in terms of age, but in terms of service, if you like. What is it that makes you keep coming back to DesignSpark? And also, what advice would you give to somebody who's considering one of these packages?
Well, one of the things I've always enjoyed is that community of engineers who do talk to each other, who do share information. I remember when DesignSpark PCB was originally launched back in the early days, there was a support forum so people could come on and ask questions about how to use the tool. And it was obvious, even someone who, like me, who wasn't necessarily using the tool to its full extent, but it became clear that there were users out there who were almost setting themselves up as super users. They were using the tool. They were able to start helping other engineers solve their problems. So I've always liked that open collaborative approach to helping other engineers learn. And then some of the crazy stuff that DesignSpark's done over the years with Superman to Space is a project that I remember fondly watching from the sidelines. And then there's all sorts of other different crazy, wacky ideas. The later work towards activist engineering, where engineers are actually kind of changing the world using some of the tools that DesignSpark is offering. So it becomes more than just engineers learning how to do their jobs. It becomes engineers with a passion to solve problems. So whether it's a problem for the company, whether it's a problem for the globe, I love that approach, that it's something we're all in this together and engineers have a way forward. And I think it's for anybody. I think it's for mechanical engineers, it's for electrical engineers, it's for electronic engineers, it's for maintenance engineers. There's mechanical stuff in there as well as other electronics focus. And it's easy to get involved. I mean, there's the free version, but all of these tools, all of these features that we've talked about in the creator and the engineer level, you can try those for free. There's a 7-day free trial that means that you can actually get to grips with some of these advanced features. And I've looked at SolidWorks, I've looked at some of these other high-end professional tools, and some of them cost thousands just for the license for you to be able to use it. Then you've got to train yourself in using it. And DesignSpark Mechanical to me was so much quicker to learn because of this direct modeling approach, this visual lump of clay. So you've got a professional level tool with all these extra features for a really modest amount per month compared to the thousands that each of these professional tools might cost if you went to other types of software. And you can try them. If you want to try them for free, 7 days, you can download and work on whatever you want to your heart's content. If it's not you, it's fine. But if you decide that you want to upgrade and you want to go for the full-blown license, £10 a month buys you the creator. And then if you don't need it for a month, you're going on holiday, you've got another project, you can pause your membership and then come back to it later on. I think it's really powerful because it does allow engineers access to a multidisciplinary bunch of tools. You may be in it for the mechanical, but hey, you can try the circuit simulator as well. You may be in it for PCB, but you might have to play with some of the mechanical versions of your design. It allows you to do that end-to-end process.